Shortly before 11 a.m. today, officers were called to a report of a male pedestrian running onto the roadway at Farrington Highway and Mo'ua Street. The two responding officers found a male walking in the middle of the highway with traffic passing around. They engaged with the male in the roadway and repeatedly instructed the male to get off the road, but he refused. The male then brandished a knife. The officers created distance from the male and drew their department-issued firearms. They continued to issue commands to put down the knife and to get off the road. Again, the male refused. The first officer returned her firearm to her holster and drew out her taser. After repeated commands, the officer deployed the taser, and the suspect initially fell to the ground. The officers appeared to close the distance when the male got up and charged at the second officer, at which time the officer fired his weapon twice, striking the suspect in the chest. Medical care was administered to the suspect. However, he died at the scene. His identity will be released by the medical examiner's office. The two officers have 23 years and 16 years of service and are both assigned to the District 8 Patrol. They will be placed on standard administrative leave. Today's incident is an example of seeming how a routine call can turn deadly in a matter of seconds. We are saddened that we had to take a life and are thankful that no members of the public or any of the officers were hurt. At this time, I will take your questions.
Chief, with that explanation, could you perhaps explain more detail as to how this escalated? Because some people would think if the gentleman or the man had a knife, what basically led to the use of deadly force? Could you go into detail as to maybe how large the weapon was? I know these things move very quickly, but can you expand on that?
So the male had, I believe it was a 2 or 3 inch knife blade instrument with him. When he brandished the knife, like I said, the officers created distance between themselves, a matter of 10 to 15 feet. The type of taser that we're using is a 10 to 12 foot range. So there was a close distance. And if you know anything about individuals with knives and law enforcement experience, a suspect can close that distance within a second or two in the event of under attack against an officer. So this happened in a quick second or two matter of time between the time that the officers engaged him with the taser. He got up from the ground and then rushed at the second officer, who then discharged his firearm.
So there was just one single taser deployment?
Yes. No, I believe she tried a second time, but by that time one of the probes had probably exited his body and therefore it was ineffective.
Are there body cams?
Yes, there are.
Also, some residents that we talked to in the area know there have been so many incidents lately, just in the past several weeks, even months, where there's this feeling of insecurity among some residents there. And part of law enforcement is supposed to be crime prevention, and apparently there's been a lot of difficulty. And the residents we spoke to aren't blaming anybody, right, but they do say that there's a problem there as far as trying to prevent crime, because they fear that gun violence is becoming rampant there. Your response? Well, there are officers that are assigned to patrol in the district in that area of Makaha, Waianae, Farrington, and Farrington Highway all the way into Kapolei and District 8. So they have their assignments. The officers are out on patrol. Their job is to deter crime. They're called to many different situations at any given time, and so they're out there doing their best to deter crime. It's unfortunate we have individuals that, for one reason or another, decide to take matters in their own hand and behave in a manner that's not socially acceptable with everyone else.
Chief, is this individual previously known to law enforcement and officers encountered this type of behavior from this person before the victim?
To my understanding, he wasn't known in that area.
What area was he known in?
That I don't know.
Do you have any more information about him? Name, age, permanent address, what he was doing? And was he crossing the road with a cart or a suitcase?
He had I believe it's a black suitcase. His name will be released by the medical examiner's office. As far as the rest of that information, that's part of the investigation that we can find out.
What was it? Was the individual living at the beach park, or was he houseless, or not? Did he have permanent residence?
I don't know. Yeah.
Was he walking in the middle of the highway for a while? Did officers see him or somebody called it in?
It was called in, a report of a male in the middle of the road, and when they got there, he was in the middle of the road. And you could see by witnesses that were, I think, videotaping the incident that he was standing in the middle of the road. There was actually a bus that went around him, actually had to drive on the shoulder to get around the individual.
Were you able to talk to his family?
No, not at this time.
Could you clarify how many years which officer had? So one officer had 23 years of service. Is that the one who did the shooting?
That I don't have, but I can ask.
Just for clarifications, even after he was tased, the man still had the knife when he lunged at officer, or at the second officer?
So when he was tased, he went down. When he got, at some time the probe or something was dislodged, so he was able to get back up. You can see an object that's flying toward the second officer. At that time, the officer went to grab or look at what that object was, still holding onto his firearm, keeping one eye on the suspect and trying to retrieve. It was at that time that the suspect or this male charged at the officer, and like I said, this was a second, maybe 2 seconds. The officer discharged his weapon at that time once he made contact with the officer. I think we believe that it was the knife that was thrown out of his hand at the officer. Whether he went to retrieve it or what the individual was doing, that we don't know.
So we're not sure just yet whether he still was armed at the time that he was shot?
Yeah, we're still looking into that, but it appears that he may have been, but we're not. We're going to look at that, and the investigation will play that out.
Did it appear that he was sober? And did you find any other weapons or drugs in his suitcase or on his person afterwards?
I think that's still under investigation, and I'll wait for that information. This is preliminary information that I've got so that we can give that information to all of you.
It sounds like all of this transpired when the actual incident began, transpired probably within a matter of seconds, rather. Is that a fair assessment?
I think there was probably a minute or two of a conversation trying to get the individual to comply to get out of the roadway for his own safety. And so I think at that point, and then the knife is brandished as the officer is engaging and talking with the individual. And it's at that time that they created the distance, and then that quickly unfolded into what happened with the discharge of the weapon. And that was a matter of seconds.
How are the officers doing, and are they on standard administrative leave?
Yes, they are in standard administrative leave at this time. And the officers are dealing with, nobody wants to take a life, and it's unfortunate. And the officers will deal with this. And we have peer support is out at the scene with the officers and with those other officers that showed up at the scene as they provided medical assistance to try and save the individual.
Will you release the body camera footage at some point?
And we'll follow our policies and release that at some point, yes.
Are you able to talk about other cases while you're here? Like the motive for the acid attack, anything with that?
We are producing more, there's more video coming in from businesses and leads coming in to Crime Stoppers, so we're following up on all of that. So we don't have a motive at this point in time, no.
I'd like to ask about the situation with the strike at Kapiolani Medical Center, if I may. This has to do with officers who are citing motorists near the medical center following noise complaints
Yes.
under revised way statutes. Who made the call in the department to start issuing citations to people who may be honking their horns?
With the public making complaints about the loud noise and the honking, or that someone in the department made the call to cite
It said,
individuals?
Noise complaints came from family members of hospital patients and nearby residents.
Correct. Yeah.
So that was in response?
Right, so the district leadership went out there to go verify the fact that this was a loud noise. It was within that confined space, or within the jurisdiction of the hospital and covered under the revised ordinance, and it was. And the leadership found out it was excessive noise, and so they began citing individuals. I think if you tapped your horn, you probably didn't get a citation, but if you were holding onto your horn for seconds or longer, at that point in time, you were either given a warning or given a citation.
There were lots of updates provided throughout the day today as this was all unfolding
Yes.
in Makaha. I know Mayor Blangiardi had raised some concerns about communication. Did you guys have a meeting? How did that go?
The mayor and I got together earlier today. We had a very productive meeting, good discussion. And right after January 1st, we had already started making adjustments within our public affairs and social media construct here in the administration. And so this is a result of all of that, yes.
Can you comment on the lawsuit that was filed in relation to the New Year's Day incident?
It's under investigation. We are taking a look at it. I take seriously any allegations made against officers, and so we'll take we'll let the lawsuit unfortunately play out the way it needs to play out, and the department will work towards answering any and all allegations.
But no officers are on administrative leave during that investigation?
Not at this time.
And why not?
I believe we're still investigating the incident to determine what happened, what allegations we can confirm, if any, and then based off of that, who took those actions.
I didn't have a chance to look at all the details, but there was an arrest made in I guess it was the innocent bystander.
Just the Waianae shooting earlier this week, I believe.
Yeah, what helped lead up to that particular arrest?
Great work by our homicide detail and our crew officers that are in the district who know the area well and know individuals with, interviews with people in the area, and then tips that came into either Crime Stoppers or our offices.
Are you looking for any other suspects, like, accomplices?
I believe there are accomplices, and they'll take the appropriate action. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.